specifically related to the election misinformation stuff, I'm sure you all are far aware now that YouTube announced it was going to be removing election misinformation. And I told you all about this, like, I think it was 3 weeks ago that I did a live stream where I cited a letter that a few senators sent to YouTube demanding an answer by December 8th. And then poof, December 8th rolls around, and wouldn't you know it, the headlines are all about YouTube taking down election misinformation. And man, it's so funny because just reading that letter, I was like, they're going after YouTube, like, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. And it was like they didn't even miss a beat. It was like exactly the date requested on that letter. So I'm going to show you the letter. We're going to talk a little bit about this, and then I'm going to show you what's happening behind the scenes on my channel, frankly, because I get a lot of questions from people about what it looks like. Some people are really skeptical that any of this stuff is actually happening. It is happening. I get notifications from YouTube when they demonetize a video, when I request a manual review, because sometimes it's just the AI that does it. They pick out a keyword or something and then decide that, the machine basically decides for you what can or cannot be on the computer. So then you have the ability to request a manual review from the company, and then the manual review comes back and determines for you whether in fact the AI was correct. There have been times in my short stint here on YouTube where I've successfully requested a manual review that has then allowed my video to go forward without being demonetized. And then recently I've had videos where it was like, nope, sorry, this is not allowed. And of course, what you've probably heard from other creators is that the reasons given in these community guidelines are very subjective. And interestingly, my election misinformation video was not actually about misinformation, though I don't know, maybe they would have considered it maybe sub-headline under that umbrella. It was for discussing a sensitive topic. So by discussing censorship related to the election, it was the video I did specifically about folks, in the hysteria over Trump staging a political or military coup and refusing to leave the White House, that I was positing that hysteria was going to be used to call for renewed and increased lockdowns on information online. And YouTube considered that video discussing a sensitive topic. So that's how it works. So I'm going to show you behind the scenes so you can see it. Because like I said, there are lots of people, not a lot, but there are some people who, write me and say, you're making this up or it's not really happening, and it is happening. So we're going to take a look at it. So let's go to the letter first, shall we? Let me pull this up here, and we're going to switch over to that screen. So this was dated November 24th, 2020. It sent to Susan Wojcicki, and I'm not going to read you the entire thing, but it's okay. So let's scroll down and see who was signed by first. Robert Menendez, Matsi Hirono, Gary Peters, and Amy Klobuchar. And it starts out by saying, we write to express our deep concern regarding the proliferation of misinformation on your platform during and immediately following the 2020 elections and in light of the upcoming Georgia runoff elections. We urge you to immediately remove all election outcome and misinformation and take aggressive steps to implement prohibitions, as other social media companies have done, regarding outcomes in future elections. It says also then in August 2020, when YouTube updated its policy regarding misinformation and manipulated media, the platform notably refused to prohibit users from posting false content on the outcome of the election or the manner in which state and local officials counted votes. As a result, the platform is now home to an onslaught of videos aiming to undermine the legitimacy of the election. So they go on to basically beat up YouTube and then end by saying, we respectfully request responses to the following questions by December 8th, 2020. I'll read you the questions again. I read them in the last live stream where I talked about this. Number one is, will YouTube commit to removing content containing false or misleading information as to the outcome of the 2020 elections and the upcoming elections in Georgia? If not, why? Number two, what steps has YouTube implemented since announcing its prohibition on voter suppression content? Number three, what steps will YouTube take to ensure that the platform is free from content that suppresses voting, incites violence, or makes false claims concerning the casting of ballots surrounding the January 2021 Georgia runoff elections. Number 4, please provide our offices with any YouTube research concerning the platform's amplification of groups or organizations using YouTube to spread election misinformation. Now, that's interesting. And that, I remember reading that the last time, I kind of glossed over it, but that's a little freaky. So they're asking, these 4 senators, Democrat senators, are asking YouTube to provide their offices with research concerning their amplification of groups or organizations using YouTube to spread election misinformation. So granted, they're saying, the platform's amplification of groups, but basically also hand in the groups or organizations that you know of who are spreading election misinformation and alert us, the government, about these groups. As I've said in previous videos, one of my greatest concerns with Section 230 getting revoked and the government having more power over these tech companies is exactly this, that like now you're going to have some kind of relationship between the tech companies and the government where they're like identifying you as somebody who's lying on the internet or spreading false information and come after you. The final one is, how much in ad revenue did YouTube receive from videos showing election result misinformation? So, okay, obviously that term misinformation, like it really depends on the user. I'm going to show you what YouTube's defining that as in a second. I got a couple other things that I want to show you here. Now, so that, remember that they were asking for answers to that by December 8th. So this is the Reuters article from December 9th, 2020. YouTube said on Wednesday it would start removing content that falsely alleges widespread fraud, change the outcome of the U.S. presidential election, and a change to its more hands-off stance on videos making similar claims. The update, which applies to content uploaded from Wednesday, comes a day after Safe Harbor, a deadline set by U.S. law for states to certify the results of the presidential election. YouTube said it would start enforcing the policy in line with its approach towards historical U.S. presidential elections. Online platforms have been under pressure to police information about the election on their sites. Now, of course, they go on to talk about, it says last month, a group of Democratic senators asked YouTube to commit to removing content containing false or misleading information. That's the letter I just read you. YouTube said in a blog post on Wednesday that since September, it has removed over 8,000 channels and thousands of misleading election-related videos for violating its existing policies. The company said more than 70% of recommendations on election-related topics come from authoritative news sources. Now, I'm going to go back from this screen to read your comments because I would like to know, what do you guess is an authoritative news source? Okay? Let's just talk about that real fast. Who is considered authoritative by YouTube? Any guesses? I'm going to read through some of the content here. Let's see. YouTube can only hand in research that it has. If it doesn't have any, it can't hand it over. Corrupt politicians stole it. Let's see here. I appreciate it very much. Allison, after the Patriot Act and Snowden, now you're worried about government power? No, I was worried about it before that. Let's see here. Rumble, Civil War. A lot of people talking about that. One consistent with academia. CNN, MSNBC. Yes. Okay, exactly. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News Channel, CBS, all of the New York Times. These are who YouTube has determined to be an authoritative source. Okay, so now more and more they're saying 70% of recommendations are going to be those corporate news outlets, and that's who they consider an authoritative source. Okay, so as I have said in previous videos, like where we're headed is this kind of conglomeration of the establishment as the authority. And so, as we're pushing towards censorship online, frankly, the more that I learn about 230 and the more that I see how the politicians, and also if you read some of these articles about YouTube's decision and you see how people at Reuters or the New York Times, as I've also mentioned, like there was that article in The Atlantic, if you see how these people discuss this issue, you see this sort of undercurrent of mainstream journalists like applauding this because, of course, why would they not want to be considered the authoritative source that YouTube is now promoting over somebody else, like somebody like me, or even if they're left or right wing kind of political pundit channels where you know what you're getting, like you may end up getting something where you're getting a a biased perspective, but at least you may be getting some kind of information that you wouldn't hear in corporate news. And so, like, if you're a responsible or sort of curious consumer of YouTube content, you can get a wide variety of opinions and thoughts and put them together and really start to make, I think, have better ideas and make better decisions about stuff than watching corporate news, because you're not necessarily getting the thorough and complex read on certain issues. And maybe it does require having multiple different outlets, different channels that are not, you know, not owned by sort of the corporate deadline structure or the corporate finance structure or any of that stuff, the editorializing that happens in corporate news. And so, like I said, even if, you know, you can't necessarily say that YouTube has just as much bias on it as mainstream media, there's obviously, like, you know, I don't have to explain that to you guys, but on YouTube, you can at least get a variety of different ideas, whereas corporate news, it all starts to kind of look the same. A lot of the talking points, especially in the center, they look a lot the same. You may hear something divergently, you know, very different between like Fox and MSNBC, but when you're looking at CBS, NBC, ABC, they all kind of look the same. And then if you're watching your local news and they happen to be one like of, you know, the affiliates for one of these stations, then they're gonna get those same talking points trickle down to them when it comes to national news. You know, the local news reporters, as I was for a long time, when we go out and do our local news reporting, that's enterprise, you know, individual new reporting that's happening. But when you're recycling the national news, it's typically the talking points of your corporate affiliate. That's why it all starts to sound the same. Okay. So let's see here. Let's go back to, I'm just going to see if we got anything here we need to talk about. Peter, thank you for the super chat. Thank you. That top looks like it's from the Flintstones, but you pull it off. That is hilarious. My husband did not. I just got this at a thrift store. It's like a vintage faux fur vest, and I like it, but it keeps me warm, and my husband hates it. So I appreciate that. He's going to love that Flintstone comment. I'm definitely, he's on an airplane right now, so he's not watching, but I will definitely share that with him. So hang on a second. Let's go back to our interwebs here, guys. So I want to show you my channel real fast so you can kind of see what it looks like back here, all right? So, you know, you have your dashboard content where you have all your videos. So you guys can see they're public. That's the visibility right here. That's the first with the green eye. See? Okay, so that means it's public. And then the next line here is monetization. So it'll say green dollar on if it's monetized. And then this one is my election video that got demonetized. It's running limited ads, and that's per manual review. Now, if you click on ad suitability here, view feedback. So it says, after review, this video has been confirmed by manual review as not suitable for most advertisers. It remains fully playable and is eligible to earn subscription revenue from YouTube Premium. So they still make a little bit of money off of it, but you don't see much. Okay, this is why they said that my video needed to be running limited ads. It's sensitive issues. Recent events dealing with war, death, or tragedy. YouTube's, so I selected that none. It's not, it doesn't, because my video was about a famous, I think she's been on Joe Rogan, in a political tech, well, she's more of a tech writer. She worked at the Stanford Internet Observatory. And she had written a couple articles about I think, you know, there were the regular terminology she was using was like the right wing's break from reality, and was writing about how like that this election was just like the final step in the right wing's break from reality. They're all going to parlay. And let me know, you guys, do you say it parlay or parlor? Because I was a French major and it's parlay in French, and I thought that's what it was supposed to be, but I hear a lot of people saying parlor. I don't totally know. But she was making that case, and so my argument in my video was that you're going to see more of this talk of civil war and escape from reality, and just like people living in la la land as as a call for more censorship, because it's kind of like this fear-mongering hysteria, like we have to do something about it. These people are going to La La Land. We're going to lose them. Our country is going to hell in a handbasket. We got to do something now. And that's all my video was about. It was just citing her Atlantic article and talking about this terminology and these linguistics that I feel like are being used to by journalists, by researchers, by government officials to push for a crackdown on Section 230 and a revocation of it, and also to crack down on YouTube and these other platforms to get them to start flagging content more. It's funny because a lot of people are like, oh, these companies have so much power, they're doing whatever. I honestly, like, the more I see how this is working behind the scenes, I really question that it's the big tech companies that really want to be doing this. I could be totally wrong. I'm not sitting here trying to like defend Zuck and Dorsey or anything. I'm just saying, like, it's just fascinating to me how, like, you see 4 senators write a letter to YouTube and then boom, YouTube censors. And so, like, when you start seeing it behind the scenes, you realize, like, maybe the YouTuber elites, as much as they may be swarming, I don't know, like, maybe they don't really want that power, but they're getting pressured by the government. Like, hey, if you want to keep operating, then you better do what we say. And so, like, it's, I guess I could try to, like, appeal this again, but I'm on, again, as I've discussed before, like, being a small creator, some bigger YouTubers have legal teams and whatnot. I don't have that. There's really not much I can do about this except for just suck it up. Now, like, at the end of the day, I realize this doesn't just happen to one political affiliation or party. I do think, and I've heard even progressives say this online, that like that unfortunately a lot of the calls for this are coming from the left side of the aisle politically. When you see like who the congressional leaders are that are pushing for this, it is Democrats. But I do see people on the progressive left getting hit by censorship by their own party. So it's fascinating to me to see like what it really should alarm us about, like in the sense of just being concerned about where it's going, is not so much a right versus left thing, but an establishment versus like outsider thing, because that's really at the end of the day what this is going to come down to. Like I said, when you start seeing that authoritative news outlets are the mainstream corporate news, that's what you're going to start seeing more and more on your homepages, on your recommended feeds, and that like they can fight again. Like, say they get labeled, if they were to ever even talk about this stuff, which I don't even know if corporate news would discuss, like, what journalists calling for censorship. I haven't heard a whole lot of them talking about it. But say they did, would they get flagged? Maybe they get flagged, and then they would have like 10 corporate attorneys in New York that would fight it, and they would probably win. And somebody like me, I'm just never going to have that. Now, like, at the end of the day, like, this may be the end of me on YouTube. It may be heading in that direction. I'm not totally sure. I'm already starting to put, my foot in the door on other sites, and then YouTube I may just use as like kind of a wide net, like just to get eyeballs from people, because it does have a wide reach, but start to focus more content on other sites where you may have a smaller audience, but you have an audience that's, interested in hashing out different ideas and are more committed to free speech. And not that there are, people on YouTube aren't that way, but you don't have to worry as much about like coming onto YouTube and put, spending an entire day. Like some YouTubers, maybe they just talk for 3 minutes and they just upload it. But somebody like me, I really put a lot of effort into understanding the topics I'm talking about. Doesn't mean that I am always perfect. I really do try hard to be thoughtful about my content. And when I'm spending a day, even more, on a video, and I'm uploading it, and it's just like it nosedives because YouTube like has these arbitrary policies about sensitive topics or whatever else. It's not, I don't even call it disheartening, because at this point, it's just like I kind of come to expect it. It's not going to be a good business practice for me in the long run. It's not going to be good business to show up to my shop, if you will, and find the door closed on a regular basis by my landlord, if that makes sense to anybody. So let's go back. I'm going to check some of the chats here. So stand by. Bob, Thanks for the super chat. Authoritative sources injects legacy media's annoying and useless unpopular spam into the top 200 search results the same way clickbait SEO farms game web search results to get their spam ranked. Yeah, I mean, it's like, this is not new, obviously, that these corporate outlets are are the ones that are kind of being promoted. To me, like, I'm guessing on this, but I think for whatever reason they're deemed like the safe ones, and not because really, if they were to like do their research, it's not because they always get their information correct, right? We could all of us come up with many examples of retractions and whatnot. To me, it's like just because, well, in part, I kind of wonder if it's like we're all saying the same thing. There's safety in numbers, so they're all making the same mistakes. So, and they have so much power in that regard. So it's just like no one comes after them. And I've seen. I mean, okay, guys, I'm going to talk about. I'm actually trying to get the guy who represented or who wrote the book about Richard Jewell. I just watched a documentary about him. If you remember him, he was the guy that the Atlanta Olympics bombing was put on, incorrectly. And like, it's just amazing. Like, you watch it. I know it's a movie and it's dramatized and whatnot, but I've seen this over and over. Like, we can come up with examples of people whose reputations have just been run through the mud. And then it's just like the media just like, they just move on to the next thing. And then the person's just kind of left there. And so, like, is it because they just have, they're all kind of in that sort of same, corporate infrastructure, that they have the same like amount of power, they all have these big attorneys, they have a lot of money, they all know the same, national security officials or Congress people or whatever, and so like, why are they considered safe versus somebody like me? Like, at the end of the day, it's kind of funny, right? Because they have a far bigger audience than I do. And so you would think like somebody that could turn an entire nation because they have gazillions of people watching, maybe less nowadays than before. But that would be considered more, whoa, we got to keep an eye on them, right? Because more people watch them. Like, only 78,000 people watch Allison Morrow. Who cares about her? So why do they come after somebody like me? I'm still trying to figure that one out. Like, what is it about me or somebody with like 10,000 subscribers that's so dangerous? But maybe you guys have some ideas that I haven't thought of yet. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Allison is dangerous, definitely. Let's just scroll back here and see if there's anything else that we have to look up. I'm just scrolling really fast through all the comments here. Okay, Bob, I'm looking at your last super chat. I made a browser script to roughly filter out authoritative sources in YouTube search results. I called it Classic Search because it's very roughly replicating how it looked prior to 2017. That's interesting. Interesting idea. Let's see here. Going back. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Still, I don't hear my daughter crying, so I think we can move on to our next little piece here. So you can see what YouTube wrote in its blog. So let's take a look at that. Okay. So this was the blog they put up on December 9th, supporting the 2020 US election. And you know what? I didn't put the link to this in the description of the video, but I will do that so you can read it because it's pretty long. But here's the gist of it, okay? Our community guidelines prohibit spam, scams, or other manipulated media, coordinated influence operations, and any content that seeks to incite violence. Since September, we've terminated over 8,000 channels and thousands of harmful and misleading elections-related videos for violating our existing policies. So they're saying they were existing policies, not new ones. That's how it matched up. Over 77% of these removed videos were taken down before they had 100 views. We also work to make sure that the line between what is removed and what is allowed is drawn in the right place. Our policies prohibit misleading viewers about where and how to vote. We also disallow content alleging widespread fraud or errors change the outcome of a historical U.S. presidential election. However, in some cases, that has meant allowing controversial views on the outcome or process of counting votes of a current election as election officials have worked to finalize counts. So they're saying why they've allowed some videos to stay up. Yesterday was a safe harbor deadline for the U.S. presidential election, and enough states have certified their election results to determine a president-elect. Given that, we will start removing any piece of content uploaded today or anytime after that misleads people by alleging that widespread fraud or errors change the outcome of the 2020 U.S. presidential election, in line with our approach towards historical U.S. presidential elections. Now, and I did want to say this one line. For example, we will remove videos claiming that a presidential candidate won the election due to widespread software glitches or counting errors. We will begin enforcing this policy today and will ramp up in the weeks to come. As always, news coverage and commentary on these issues can remain on our site if there's sufficient education, documentary, scientific, or artistic context. So the way it gets set up, and this is why it gets kind of frustrating for people, is that what is sufficient? Like, who defines sufficient? What is an educational piece of content? Scientific? What does that mean? It's funny to me that there are people who think that these are easily definable terms, because they're really not. They depending on like who you talk to. And I've used to, like, actually still do. I've done media trainings for scientists, and it's interesting even just to see the variety in their world about what's considered, a firm result that you can count on and something that still needs to be worked through. And so even, just using that term, I think it's just interesting. Of course, then they go down here and show us, this is what I was talking about earlier, that the most viewed U.S. election-related content, and they're kind of saying this to brag, honestly, or they're saying this to the powers that be, like, hey, we're not that bad. That while only a small portion of watch time is election-related content, YouTube continues to be an important source of election news. On average, 88% of the videos in top 10 search results related to elections came from authoritative news sources. Amongst the rest are things like newsy late-night shows, creator videos, and commentary. And the most viewed channels and videos are from news channels like NBC and CBS. So right here in this screen, you see top channels: ABC News, NBC News, USA Today, CNN, CBS News. So that's what people are watching, and that's what they're recommending. It also says we showed information panels linking both to Google's election results feature, which sources election results from the Associated Press, and to the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency's rumor control page for debunking election integrity misinformation, alongside these and over 200,000 other election-related videos. So you've probably seen that on all of my videos that talk about the election, there's something underneath it that says that the AP is called the election for Biden. And if you want to know more, click this link that goes to Google. So anyway, that's what's going on there. I just figured I would give you guys a look-see at that. And let's go back to the comments. I'll take a few of those, and then I'm gonna check on my kiddo and get back to Sunday. So let's see what we got here. Let's see. Okay, all I can say about it all is damn. Okay, Trump, worst president ever. Can't fix stupid. If there is no election fraud, then why suppress information? Community guidelines is the double speak of the day. Zero wars, best president in a long time. Trump equals best president ever. So, okay, we got a lot of lies. Got a feeling 21 is going to be a good year. Off talking about the greetings from Mobile, Alabama. Those existing policies from the Department of Homeland Security in 2016. 45 lies, don't worry. Biden, POTUS 46, and Harris POTUS 47 will be much worse. Okay, let's see here. Sounds like editorializing. Censorship. Yeah, I mean, I think, at the end of the day, it's kind of one of those things that, people like myself we're gonna have to make some tough decisions, and it's annoying because I think that, like, I've really enjoyed I've enjoyed being on YouTube. I've enjoyed growing this community. I've enjoyed hearing from people. I've just enjoyed, like, the learning process and the ability to find all kinds of different ideas. But I do think the writing is on the wall. So I will be, replying more on this. And I guess, I will add, like, I want to make sure everybody understands that, to me, this is not an argument. Like, I'm not even gonna, you guys can argue in the comment section about this election till you're blue in the face. And my whole point of doing these videos is so that you have the ability to have those conversations. That's what I'm trying to defend here, and trying to make sure that in some way there are a few of us who are like this could go down a potentially dangerous path, because if you don't, you're kind of biting your nose off to spite your face, if that's the right way to say it, because you think like in the short term, okay, phew, we got rid of all this misinformation, but in the long term, does it set us up for an information oligarchy, run by basically a lot of really rich people in corporate America and then their counterparts in the government, and then of course the journalists that go along with it, which is bizarre to me because there are obviously not everybody. There are people out there in the journalism world that are seeing, and outside it, that are seeing this as very concerning. But there are a lot of journalists who think this needs to happen, and I don't know. It's very odd to me. Let's see. The United States is a corporation, not a republic anymore. Politicians are puppets. Both sides, red and blue, work for the bankster globalists. They're saying loud and clear that nobody is going to share news they do not want to be shared. Trump equals 22,000 lies since 2015. Fact check. Let's see. What's your take on Canada training CCP troops? Oh my gosh. I don't know. Can you give me a link for that? I would like to see. I've heard that the CEO of Rumble has been on a couple different shows, and I would like to hear what he has to say. So I'm going to definitely look into that. Let's see. Okay, everybody's hashing it out about Trump. Let's see here. Thank you. Merry Christmas. The election is a charade. I see no reason this will change for the better. All right, everybody. Let's see. Let's see. Biden. Okay. Well, I think we're all going down the Biden versus Trump rabbit hole. So, I'm going to keep talking about censorship. Let's see. Drain the Trump White House swamp. That flag is on every channel or post of Trump Biden. Yeah, every channel that's talking about the election gets flagged. For what the AP, they'll basically say this is what the AP is saying, and then you can click on it. And then you go to the AP. But like I said, like even if let's just say we all could agree on this election, which I know we won't. But let's just say we could. Like, can we all sort of consider the potential for I wish there was a better word than that, but like the potential for extreme censorship down the road, using this as the jumping off point. Like, I interviewed a guy on this channel a while back, right before actually I had my daughter in May, and he's a constitutional attorney who worked on the Pentagon Papers. He worked on the Iran-Contra scandal. So, I mean, he was very aware of like how CNN back then was making decisions about coverage of war and American intervention in the governments internationally that they didn't like. And I'm reading Manufacturing Consent. I've said that before right now, and just some of the ways that the corporate media has worked kind of with the American, call it security state or whatever, intelligence officials, to either support our action internationally or vilify in order to support our action, and then leave our allies alone, like that kind of stuff. I mean, do you see how down the road that maybe like this constitutional attorney, like I was saying, he saw how CNN was like, because they trust the government. Like the government is like, well, go just look at them. I mean, they take retired CIA people and national security officials, and then they become commentators on these channels. So you take them as the authority, and then now all of a sudden we don't have these other voices that we've been lucky enough to find. What happens with something that's like a war down the road or international policy? Not that in the election isn't an important debate, for sure. I mean, being able to talk about a presidential election is an important topic. That said, like, let's see where it leads down the road. And I'm just surprised that there have been so many people that haven't said like, well, I mean, look at our pension and for how people, not, like I said, not even just like it's just corporate media, but like people in general have a penchant for we all have filters. We see things through the world through the eyes and the experiences that we've had. And the great thing about the internet and not having censorship if we did have that in existence, is that we can get different ideas, and we can see other people's thoughts on things, and then we can kind of put the puzzle together for ourselves. And like that, I guess, is the thing that concerns me. So, all right, everybody, I think we are going to close this one up. Like I said, if you want to see some of the links, check out the description. I'll put some more there. Again, there are links to how you can support me also in that. And then I will start putting my new site links in the description as well. So I'll add my locals link if you want to head over there. You know, the one thing that's tough about like locals, I was trying to upload some of my videos, and they don't let, like, it has to be under a certain limit. So some of my YouTube videos are like 18 minutes long, and they won't take them. So that's kind of annoying. Hey, I see my brother. Love you, Allie. Hey, love you too, Scott. Censorship is not always a black and white issue, sort of like Allison's band outfit today. Flynn Parrish, thanks for the super chat. Okay, so is it Flintstones or Panda? I was a wildlife reporter, so maybe it can be that. I'm still gonna wear this. You know what? I may make this my live stream outfit just to give you guys something to talk about in the chat. Thanks, Allison. Happy holidays. Great work, Allison. Love your approach to seeking truth. Thank you. Let's see. I hear the baby crying, Jim. Yeah. I know she probably is crying about Jet. Okay, let's see. Trump 2020 plus 24. LOL. Trump now the joke of the world. All right. Well, guys, outfit is great. Thanks. You know what? You're officially my favorite viewer. Whatever. You know what? I like here. Like, the hair shirt has to go, Allie. Anyways, it's not hair. It's faux fur. Okay. Quick story. As somebody who covered the environment for a long time, I don't know if you guys realize this, but the fashion industry is the second worst polluter in the world, next to oil. And so I do not like to buy like a lot of brand new clothes, because there's really this debate as to whether buying a new piece of clothing that is made kind of like locally without a lot of chemicals and runoff and stuff is better than just buying a conventional outfit that's been worn like 100 times. I tend, because I'm cheap, I go to thrift stores a lot, and I like buying older stuff. I find that it's made better. And really, when it comes to, like, a lot of people will ask, like, if you want to be a better steward of the environment, what's the number one thing to do? And I always say, like, whatever it is that you consume it often. So it's like, if you buy something like a shirt, wear that shirt a lot. Don't just throw it away. I have a friend who will only wear something once, and I often call her my frenemy, even though she really is my friend. But you know, it's I like thrift stores because I feel like I'm holding true to making sure that the resources that went into my clothes are working hard, you know, and getting use out of them. And then also it's just cheaper. Let's see. How many foes died in making this vest? Yes, a lot of foes. Faux fur, faux fur, faux fur, faux fur, faux fur. I said that 5 times very fast, I think. Rabbit is good eating plus easy to breed. I do actually. I don't know if you know Joel Salatin. He's one of my favorite farmers out in oh gosh, what is that valley? The Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, and he raises those. Vegan fur made with dinosaurs, maybe. A baby seal walks into a club. Okay, now these are comments I could get into. Wilma, how's Pebbles? You know what, y'all? I didn't even think about that when I showed it to my husband. He didn't even think about the fact that it looks like that. Okay, it looks like we got a super chat. Let's go back to it. Shylin, do you believe Newsmax is a fair alternative to Fox News, or does that will take us to an echo chamber? I mean, Newsmax is definitely a right-leaning organization, and so I guess if you want to read Newsmax, which you should. I mean, I think that you should. I think you should read all of them and know what's going on. But I would also, if you want to see like how one side is viewing a particular issue, and then you want to see the rebuttal to that, pick one that leans left. And, I think the only way you end up in an echo chamber is if you don't start seeking out the information. Of course, like the AI helps the echo chamber thing sometimes. But I will say that like there have been people and channels that have been recommended to me that are a wide variety in my recommendations. I think maybe they think they say I do news on YouTube. So they'll suggest to me news channels, but they'll be of different political leanings. So I guess like at the end of the day, it's like, read whatever you want and just make sure that you're doing your diligence with understanding where they're coming from and then what might be the alternative to that. And frankly, I kind of look at that as to me, it's fun. Because I think over the years, I've interviewed so many people, like thousands of people. We're talking thousands of people I have sat across from, ridden cattle drives with, been in laboratories with. I've seen and met so many different views on the world, and all of these people, for the most part, were just like, they're all like each other when it comes to, they're just like want to make their paycheck to go home and feed their family, and they believe in what they do, and I've very few of like 98%, so 2% of the 98% or whatever, or 2% of the 100%, I would say are like, okay, those people they're kind of evil, like in the sense that like they're just something, they're trying to really screw you and the world around them. But it's like a small minority. The vast majority of people I think really believe in what they're talking about, and maybe they just like haven't had the opportunity or been challenged on their ideas. And I do think people are more emotional nowadays. Like just the more I talk to, this is just my personal experience. I find folks are just a little bit more emotionally reactive to what's going on. But I do think that like if you get to know people who are very different and you really get to know them, they're not just somebody you watch on social media. Especially since like if you find, maybe you guys have found this, that like if you have an in-person conversation with somebody, it's more likely to go well, even if you have divergent opinions on things, because you're like, I know this person, I know they're not yelling at me. Sometimes it's hard with the text on the screen to know tone of voice, and people are more apt to say nasty things that they wouldn't say to your face. So I think the way we've communicated on social media has kind of turned us a little bit into emotional bots. But if you can kind of pull yourself away from that and have real world experiences in, even in the COVID world, and you start talking to people who are different, I do think that a good majority of people like really are trying to, I wouldn't say they are trying to, but they will sit back and have a conversation face to face in a way that they're in some ways not having online. So I do kind of like encourage people to just go back to having actual real relationships. Okay, I think Mark K, did you see the list of 2 million CCP spies being named online? No. Can you put a link to that so I can look at it? Peter M, right-wing spin is often more accurate. I get left spin everywhere. Dr. Jill Biden for Surgeon General. Let's see. Okay, if I understand that correctly. Well, so I will say that like there's a difference between an overtly like, because I get this a lot. Like, well, there was this, some people didn't understand what I was saying in my last live stream about how I saw journalists acting differently, like emotionally cheering and booing under this last presidential administration versus Obama. I didn't mean that like I didn't see Fox News Channel going after Obama. Of course I saw that. And the same way you saw MSNBC going after Trump. I'm talking about the people in the middle. And I was talking about my personal experience, like when the cameras are off and what journalists were behaving like behind the scenes. And there were people who work for my company who, there was one in particular that, somebody like took a screenshot of this person's personal Facebook page and what they had posted about folks who voted for Trump, and that person, essentially, like, because that person's a public figure, our station manager was not very happy about that. And I never had seen, I just didn't see that kind of like, you're killing my kids, you're ruining, you're like, you don't unfriend me. I just didn't see that before him. But like, again, I mean, maybe that's not just Trump. It's also like just a more energized use of social media, like more and more people, like it's like a drug, the more you do it, the more out there. I will say, I find it kind of fascinating that people still try to have these like really intense conversations on Facebook, for instance, because I have found it just not to be the place to like just in the comment section just go after each other. There was one time where somebody, like, this was right after the election, one of my coworkers was posting stuff that I was just like, dude, come on, like, you're, if you're gonna work for a journalist outlet, like you this kind of talking is like not helpful. And wouldn't you want to communicate with somebody who has different viewpoints? Like, especially if you're somebody who's trying to understand the world, like this is what you do for a living. Like, why would you just want to get rid of all of the people that who think differently? Like, even if you want to reconfirm why you think the way you do, wouldn't you like to understand how the rest of the world that doesn't think that way, how they're moving through their ideas, so that you can have a better grip on your own opinions? And that was the last time first and last time I ever had one of those conversations in a comment thread, because I'm just like, it's not worth it. You see the person in the bathroom the next day, it's totally awkward. It doesn't change anyone's minds. So I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Well, everybody's arguing about Trump and Biden. So I think I'm going to leave you guys to continue having that. Let's see. I think I've been on this now for almost 45 minutes. So probably the baby's up somewhere. I don't know. I put her out with the dog. No, I'm just kidding. No, I didn't. She's in her crib. She's in her crib. I wouldn't do that. She probably thinks that what's the Flintstone baby? Bam Bam. Got to go check on Bam Bam. Yeah, know your frenemy. Yeah, exactly. You should know your frenemy, because at the very least, like, guys, like, it's funny, when I was, the last little rant. I lived in Florida right before I moved to Seattle, and Florida's a red state, and pretty mainline Republican, but that changed kind of with the Tea Party movement and stuff. And then I saw how like in Florida, conservatives didn't always have like the best arguments for their ideas, because there were a lot of them around. In the same way that when I moved to Seattle, a lot of the Democrats didn't have great arguments. And actually, this is vice versa. Like, I would talk about, having gone to seminary and studied theology, when you live in an area where religion is commonly practiced, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody has like the greatest depth of knowledge about their belief system, because they haven't necessarily always been challenged by the other side. And so like in Seattle, Seattle is kind of an a-religious place, and there were a lot of atheists in Seattle, and they were kind of, I went to school with, actually, believe it or not, there are a lot of atheists that go to seminary. But I went to school with a lot of very smart atheists, and I got to go out to coffee with, and I'd talk to these people. So it helped my belief system strengthen, because I was able, and change, like strengthen and transform and change, depending on, I was like, oh, okay, I hadn't really thought about that. If I really still believe that's true, I need to find a response to their pushback on that, instead of just, putting my fingers in my ears and not listening to it. And so depending on the cultural ethos of where you live, the arguments aren't necessary. And so when you can see that happening in the virtual sphere, like, if all you have are people you watch or comment, or you only keep your friends who voted one way or the other, then frankly, you're the one who ends up being hurt in the long run, because your belief systems are not going to be challenged, and you're not going to grow. Like, my daughter, eventually when she starts talking, is probably going to think mashed potatoes are made by our horse outside or something. I don't know. But like, eventually I'm going to have to challenge her on the idea that I made the mashed potatoes, and she's going to have to listen. Otherwise, she's going to grow up going to school thinking that mashed potatoes are made by horses, which maybe that's fine. But I'm just saying, like, when you want to know how mashed potatoes are really made, or if you really believe that, then like have a conversation about why horses make mashed potatoes. It's probably a terrible argument and analogy for that, but you get what I'm trying to say. Okay. Well, everybody, I think I'm going to go. This Flintstone outfit's got enough traction for today, and I think we have a lot to talk about. Again, links in the description for how you can support my work. I will put the new links for the places that I'm heading to, so you can follow me there. Right now, like I said, I am only on, I'm on Patreon, and I started Locals, Parlay. Did I ever get an answer to that? Is it Parlay or Parlor? Parlay or Parlor? Can somebody answer that one for me? Parlay or Parlor? Parlay or Parlor? I'm waiting. Okay, not helping. Horses make apples. Thank you. Cool outfit. Trump. Is it Parlay or Parlor? Somebody give me an answer to this one. This is Parlor. That's how you say it? No, you can't just rewrite the word Parler because that doesn't tell me. Is it Parlay or Par French? Parlay. Parlay. Okay. Parlor. It's not the French way. Parlay. Okay, everyone's saying it differently. This isn't helping me. So that was useless. I'm getting not parlay but parlor. Parlor. Maybe this is you say tomato, I say tomato. I don't know. It started as the French. Parlay. Okay. I hope we don't have a civil war over how to say this name. I'm just gonna say what am I going to say? I don't know. I'll have to think about which way I want to go. But yeah, I was a French major. So it is pronounced parlay. But you know what? How people say it also matters because you need to be understood. Okay. I think it's parlor and parlay is what the thread is. It's parlor. I heard parlor dialogue French. Parlay is tweeting on parlay. Je ne parle pas. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. Je ne sais pas. Je ne sais pas. Je ne sais pas. I hope you guys have a great Sunday. Matt, thanks for the super chat. If they're going to spell it with the R, well, that's how the word is in French. It means to talk or to speak in French. Je parle français means I speak French. Damn, she's a major part in the company, and he says parlor. Okay. Well, maybe they've decided to, it's like freedom fries. They've taken French fries and turned them into freedom fries, and they've turned parlay into parlor. I don't know. Who knows anymore, guys? All right. Hey, I hope you all have a great Sunday, and the rest, I'll be back. I think I have a video uploaded for Tuesday. We're going to talk about food banks because they are kind of in trouble with the amount of people that are having economic woes due to losing their jobs and whatnot because of the shutdown. So I did an interview a week and a half ago with a woman who runs a food bank in Portland, Northeast Portland. And it's insane. The amount of they did like their entire amount of traffic from 2019 they did in 1 month in 2020. So check out on your local food banks and how people are doing. They said that people they'd never seen before are coming in. So some people are really hurting out there, and I don't know if it's going to get any better anytime soon. All right, guys, stay real.